Some stories begin not with grand decisions, but with the unnoticed steps of ordinary people. Steps that quietly teach us about connection, kindness, and the invisible threads between strangers. This is Yumi. She doesn't wear a title or stand behind a podium. She's not a therapist, a teacher, or a public figure. She's a delivery truck driver, one of the countless people who quietly keep the world running. Every morning, she rises before dawn. While most of the city is still asleep, she prepares for the long hours ahead, loading packages, checking tire pressure, programming her route. It's not glamorous work, but Yumi greets each task with a calm smile, the kind that speaks of quiet strength. She's used to solitude, the hum of the engine, the sound of tires against the road, the routine of stops and signatures. It's all part of her rhythm, and she embraces it without complaint. There's something powerful about people who show up each day, not for recognition, but because showing up itself is their way of honoring life. This morning, like many others, begins quietly. Nothing unusual, at least on the surface. But sometimes, life is already unfolding beneath the silence. Unbeknownst to Yumi, while she was busy securing the final packages in her cargo box, a man, quiet and unsure, stepped into the back of the truck. The doors had been open. The moment had been brief, and he made a decision that felt less like escape and more like reaching out toward something. Anything. He didn't mean harm. He wasn't there to disrupt. He simply saw an open space and stepped inside, hoping for a chance to go somewhere he couldn't reach on his own. There's something fascinating in this moment from a psychological perspective. We often think of boundaries as lines between right and wrong. But for many people, especially those who feel cornered or stuck, those lines blur. Not out of recklessness, but out of quiet desperation. The man in the back of Yumi's truck didn't say a word. He sat quietly, and Yumi, focused on her task, had no idea he was there. This is the nature of life sometimes. We carry more than we know, and sometimes we unknowingly carry the weight of someone else's story. A few hours into her route, a stranger appears, a man on the side of the road. He raises his hand in a calm gesture, not aggressive or forceful, just a signal, a request to pause. Yumi slows the truck and lowers her window. The man speaks with hesitation, asking her if she's seen anyone unusual, someone he might be looking for, but his words are vague. His tone is unsure. There's no clear urgency, no concrete reason to worry. Yumi listens. She's polite, but she doesn't fully understand what he's getting at. She tells him gently that she hasn't seen anything out of the ordinary, and offers a respectful nod and prepares to move on. From a psychological standpoint, moments like these are more common than we realize. People intersect our lives briefly, strangers, wanderers, passers-by, and we don't always know what they carry or why they appear. But these moments matter. They remind us of an important truth. Empathy doesn't always come from understanding the full story. Sometimes, empathy is just being willing to pause, to listen, to respond without judgment. She doesn't think much of the man on the road. The exchange was brief. There was nothing alarming about it, but something about his voice lingers. Not a warning, just a quiet ripple in an otherwise predictable morning. Yumi drives on. There are packages to deliver, roads to follow, schedules to keep. Her day, in many ways, is just beginning. But somewhere in the back of her truck, a quiet presence remains, and neither of them knows yet how much this brief, silent proximity will change what the rest of the day means. Yumi slows the truck as the road begins to curve. As she coasts into a shaded stretch of road, a sound breaks the calm. Her steps toward the back of the truck are slow, cautious, not from fear, but from curiosity. There, sitting on one of the empty crates, is a man. This is the man who boarded Yumi's truck without her knowing. And this is the moment they both realize their paths were never meant to cross. And yet, somehow, they have. Yumi blinks. She doesn't shout. She doesn't demand answers. Instead, she tilts her head, puzzled, then asks gently, "Are you all right?" The man nods. Then, after a pause, he begins to speak. Not in a rush, not to justify himself, just honestly. He tells her he's been working far from home, construction jobs in another prefecture, long hours, sleepless nights. Eventually, the work dried up, and so did the money. He hadn't seen his family in over a year. He wanted to return, but the trip was long, and he didn't have enough to make it back on his own. He saw the open truck and made a choice, not because it was right, but because it felt like the only option left. There's something deeply human in the way people respond when they feel unseen. Sometimes the world teaches us to hide, to be silent, to carry our burdens alone. But in moments of vulnerability, even accidental ones, we open the door to connection. Yumi listens carefully. She doesn't interrupt. She doesn't question his choices. Because empathy, at its core, isn't about agreeing. It's about recognizing another person's reality without needing to control it. She looks at the road ahead, then back at him. "You're trying to get home?" she asks. He nods. She offers a small smile. "I can take you as far as the main town near the coast. It's not your exact stop, but it's closer than here." He's surprised. He doesn't expect the kindness. But Yumi isn't doing it out of obligation. She's doing it because she remembers what it's like to need help and to receive it from someone who had no reason to give it. She's doing it because she remembers what it's like to need help and to receive it from someone who had no reason to give it. She doesn't ask for his full story. She doesn't ask for his name. Because sometimes the dignity of a person lies in the space we give them to share, or not to share, what they choose. In a world full of noise, true kindness is quiet. It doesn't perform. It doesn't demand praise. It simply acts and then moves on. From a psychological perspective, what's powerful here isn't the event itself, but Yumi's response. She chooses empathy over assumption, help over judgment, boundaries without cruelty. Because healthy empathy isn't about fixing someone's life. It's about saying, "I see you, and in this small moment, you don't have to be alone." For the first time in a long while, he feels seen, not questioned, not rejected, just accompanied. And for Yumi, nothing feels different, but something in the air has changed, as if kindness itself had quietly sat beside her, guiding her hands on the wheel. Kindness doesn't ask for recognition. It simply continues, like a truck on a long road, steady, focused, and determined to deliver. These aren't just deliveries. They're moments, tiny threads in a larger fabric of life. Each stop is a relationship built on trust. And so, even with an unexpected passenger in her truck, Yumi stays committed to doing her job, fully, responsibly, quietly. But not everything on the road is peaceful. It's the same stranger from earlier, the one who tried to stop her before. He's not aggressive. He doesn't raise his voice, but his presence carries pressure, like a storm that hasn't quite broken. "You didn't see anyone back there, right?" he asks with a tilt of the head, voice casual but loaded. Yumi meets his gaze. "I'm just doing my job," she replies calmly, sipping her tea. There are moments in life when pressure doesn't come from loud conflict, but from quiet expectations, from people who expect you to bend your values, to betray what you know in your heart is right. But Yumi doesn't bend. She doesn't lie, but she also doesn't reveal what isn't hers to tell. The man watches her for a few seconds longer, then shrugs. "Just checking," he says, and walks away, leaving behind a trace of unease, but no action. The man in the back hasn't said a word about it. She knows he probably heard, but there's no conversation. Because sometimes, when you protect someone's dignity, they protect your silence in return. Integrity doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's as simple as keeping a steady course, even when someone tries to shake the wheel. As the truck climbs a mountain pass, the light shifts again, late afternoon turning slowly to evening. The sky bruises purple, the wind picks up, and ahead, in the distance, home begins to feel closer. They sit quietly as the sun dips below the trees. No explanations, no confessions. Only two people who, for one moment in time, have shared the same path. In this life, we don't always need to rescue each other. Sometimes what we need is someone to believe in our journey long enough to help us move forward. That's what Yumi offers, not a solution, but momentum. And in doing so, she reclaims something powerful for herself, her ability to help without losing her way. Tomorrow, there will be more deliveries, more long hours, more quiet roads. But tonight, there is peace. Not every journey is measured in kilometers. Some are measured in courage and quiet kindness. Yumi's truck pulls into a small residential area on the edge of the countryside. The houses are simple, wooden fences, wind chimes, flower pots along balconies. As she parks, the man in the back slowly steps out. He looks different now. More awake, more present. There's still a hint of fatigue in his eyes, but also something warmer, a sense of belonging that had been lost, now found again. He doesn't rush. He stands for a moment, eyes tracing the rooftops, the narrow alleyways. This is home. Sometimes we lose the road not because we take a wrong turn, but because life pulls us in too many directions at once. But when someone shows us even a small act of trust, we remember where we were meant to go. An elderly woman stood on the sidewalk nearby. The man instinctively ran towards her, throwing himself into her arms. There are no loud words, no dramatic confessions, just a long, quiet embrace. Yumi watches from the truck. Her eyes soften. She doesn't interrupt, doesn't wave, just smiles, the kind of smile that knows it was never about credit. Yumi never asked what happened. She didn't need to. Because healing doesn't always need questions. Sometimes it just needs space, patience, and the kindness of a stranger who believes in you. Life doesn't pause, and neither does Yumi. They may seem ordinary to others, but to Yumi, they are pieces of something beautiful. Purpose. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is simply show up, to deliver what we promised, to listen without judgment, to help not because we have to, but because we can. Yumi didn't change the world, but she changed someone's day. And sometimes, that's how healing begins. And tomorrow, she'll be back on that road again, delivering more than just boxes, delivering quiet strength, one stop at a time. Every journey matters. Every act of kindness counts. If this story moved you, share it with someone who's ever made your journey easier. You might just brighten their day too.